what are you doing, like, action wise or activity wise, when you're having these large doses? And are they typically in tea form?
I'll brew up the entire dose and I'll start drinking. And I make a lot of tea. I'll make like a liter of tea and I'll start drinking it at 5 or 6. And I set my intention. I go through the whole ritual process leading into it. And then what I like to do initially is I like to read. Currently, I'm reading about Amanita. I'm reading, the
Mhm.
Soma, the Divine Mushroom of Immortality. I also tend to read a lot of various channeled works, and I read a lot about quantum mechanics and quantum physics. And I'm viewing it from angles that I'm learning to view via this process in my regular conscious, day-to-day life. I get a lot from that, and it's expanded the capacity for my holding of information and knowledge. It's like it seems to, yeah, expand the holographic capacity of my brain. And then after that, I'll generally I take a sauna. That's usually a big part of it, which is a nightly thing for me anyways, if I'm home at least. I like to go into a space of like completely uninhibited thought flow. So just like pure contemplation and allowing like the train of thought to move to wherever it needs to go or wherever it wants to go. In that space, it becomes like a real different form of meditation. I find on these high doses of Amanita, meditating is really, really hard. It's really
Mm.
hard to, and it's
Wow.
also if like the higher the dose it gets, yeah, the more tricky it gets because your brain is just like wanting to go down these interesting rabbit holes. Similarly, like playing piano, for instance, like playing piano, I can get into such a flow state, but at a high dose, like things get glitchy. But what I found is if I can push through it and like same with meditating, if I can push through it and get to that place and actually like make it happen, what it does is it seems to rewire my brain in such an effective way so that I'm able to do that then, sober or
Wow.
in the conscious life much
Wow.
better. And that's
Wow.
why
So
I
it's
like
like
reading.
interesting because what you're doing is it's like you're like swimming with weights around your ankles, right? So it's like you're training
Exactly.
your brain to better focus despite the distraction, right? Like
Yeah.
so if you're able to push past that, yeah, maybe you're doing heavier lifting in retraining that
Yeah.
focus part of your brain.
Yeah, and then
Interesting.
you have the increased neuroplasticity, and it just, like, seems to really allow for the
Mm,
brain to rewire so efficiently. But, yeah, so then
wow.
I'll sauna, and then, I might play piano a little bit, but by this point, I'm pretty far into the tea, and I get to the point where I go to bed. And in bed, I let myself think and drift, and it's in that twilight space, that's where it all happens, that's where the magic happens, like,
Mm,
in between,
okay.
that's when I connect to this story that's playing out, that's really been, like, kinda guiding my life and my path and showing me like where my life path is going and like who you are, who like it's shown me so much.
Wow.
But yeah,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
that twilight space is where it gets really, really profound. But I'm also talking about really large doses and like most people they're not comfortable. Like it's not a comfortable experience. It's not like super uncomfortable, but it can be uncomfortable. But it's at this level, it's trabajo, it's work. Like it's
Yeah.
work. It's the
Rewarding.
work that has yielded the most result for me by far, like compared to
Wow.
anything. The thing is, like, I still can't quite tangibly.
Verbalize. No.
Yeah, yeah, I just can't, and it's
Yeah.
not
And that's
like,
been my experience
even
too.
internally, like, I can't quite fully grasp it, but every time I get more and more and more, it's unlike something like ketamine where, like, you come back and you can't grasp it. Something happened and it was incredible, but, like, you never actually grasp it, like, you
Mhm,
can
mhm,
never get there. With Amanita,
mhm.
it's like, it's this sphere that's growing and growing and growing,
Wow.
and yeah, but
Wow.
yeah, so that's kind of how I
Wow.
use it now.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I'm learning so much. Just a couple comments. I didn't know you play piano, so that's really beautiful that you kind of
Yeah,
like you tap into that flow state there. Like that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother rabbit hole for me to start learning more
yeah,
about flow state and the
yeah,
incredible benefits to stopping the aging, reversing the aging process, healing, all this crazy stuff
mhm.
with flow state. But that's really, really cool. Also, I'm curious if you listen to music when you're in the sauna.
I do
Um,
silence. Yeah, I generally do
okay.
silent.
Okay. So
Honestly,
really
the
like
higher
mine.
the dose of Amanita, the less music has a draw to me, which I think is
Okay.
interesting too, because that's kind of
Well, that shapes your experience. So, so perhaps you're
yeah,
trying to have this pure experience. Like, music can definitely guide kind of the direction, even the thoughts and the feelings. So many things music are doing. I mean, you're introducing all these different frequencies, right? So interesting. Okay, I'm gonna process that. A few things I realized just self-centered little me. I'm typically using it just to work out my own like little problem shit. And what I love hearing is that yours is this like zoomed out kind of more like existential approach and intention behind using these medicines. And I think that's ultimately where the secret sauce to like more genuine peace is, right? When we zoom out, we take ourselves out of like just like being that center of the world, and you're kind of zooming out, trying to understand the world and your place in it versus the one that revolves around you. And so I'm loving that conceptually, just for me, just being mindful of that. And that's something we talk about a lot in recovery as well, which is
Mhm.
like the more you focus on yourself, like the less happy we are. When we focus on
Yeah.
service,
Yep.
and we focus on, again, like those things you're talking about, humanity, then we find peace. And when I look at back on times of being in the most alignment, yeah, there was much more of that. And that's actually one of the things that I miss from some of the things that I did. Because you're right, with ketamine, I'd have some glimpses at those things. It was harder to grasp. I still have some moments that I can't even verbalize now, but I'll never forget like one moment where I was like, I'm like, there is a spiritual ability to tap in, like to use it, with the ketamine, sure. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I haven't used Amanitas to anything other than personal heart like opening. And so now being inspired to start using the medicine for something that's a bit more zoomed out of just me and my world, and looking at things a bit differently can be wildly rewarding. Really, really, really cool that you use it that way. And gosh, what else is I gonna say? There's so many things here. This is rad.
It's come back to it if you can, if you remember. But like one of the other things that I've noticed is that, and I'm sure this is kind of consistent with any psychedelic or psychedelic-esque substance, the amount of knowledge and joy, or the caliber of the experience, is directly proportionate to the caliber of my healing. Like directly. The more work that I've done, the more profound the experiences have become. And like this is also where I think like potentially back in the day, these, near ascended masters, or beings of like extremely high spiritual caliber, they would like, I would imagine the experience one gets from Amanita would be just like so infinitely uncomparable to what it is for me.